If you didn't watch the last video, I recommend that you do, but we had this beautiful Prevost marathon conversion come in, late 80s, and it had all kinds of startling discoveries on it. One of which was the axle nut holding the hub on the drive axle. There's no threads left on it whatsoever, so that was very, very scary and concerning. He had just bought this bus. It's been a couple of years, but he's only put about 3,000 miles on it, and 2/3 of that mileage was from getting it from Montana, where he bought it, to where he lives in Michigan, and then coming down to us. So he's not really been using it. And it took 6 months to get in here on our schedule. So it had so many wheel bearing issues on it, so much metal in the hubs with all the bearings, and rust in the bearings, and just crazy stuff. Had lots of air leaks on it, major safety concerns. But we're going to get into getting things fixed up here and get this thing headed in the right direction today. All right, one of the big maintenance thing is it has the wrong oil in it. It's got a 15W40, so we're going to put the Delo 100 straight 40 weight CF2 rated oil, which is the appropriate approved oil for the Detroit diesel. We ran a test strip on the coolant, and it's terrible. It's off the charts. So we're draining the coolant out here, and it's super foamy. I've never seen that much foam come out with draining coolant before. But yeah, the cooling system is has not been maintained properly. Luckily, our local dump, we can take 55-gallon barrels of used coolant there, and they have it recycled, so that's good for us. Foamy looking? Oh, yeah. Well, these coolant filters are very rusty, and they have a date code stamped on them, manufacture date of 1998. So these have been on there for a long, long time. Not very good shape. The new filter looks much better. Well, the pyrometer broke off when we were taking it out of the broken manifold that we got to replace. So we're going to remove the stub out so I can make sure, I believe it's a 1/4-inch NPT thread, but we're going to have to drill. The new manifold that we have doesn't have a hole in it, so we're going to have to drill and tap out a hole. I just want to make sure it's the right size. So we're going to remove this just to confirm it.
Fitting is getting hot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm going to try it before we catch the table on fire even more. Hopefully it don't just break off. Don't touch it. It's got the red light on still.
I wasn't even pushing really.
See how far that'll go in.
Do something that has better threads. Or I can do it by hand.
That's about where we do tie that. Let's do like 2 more revolutions with the tap because it's tapered. I want to make sure we're in there good. So we clean this manifold up pretty good. This was the old used one. That's where we drilled and tapped the hole. 1/4 inch NPT. This is the diaphragm that was leaking in the front brake chamber. So it's severely cracked all the way around, but it was leaking up here at this point. So we've cleaned up the brake. We didn't need to replace the whole chamber or anything, so we just got that all cleaned up. And then we purchased 2 new diaphragms. We're gonna replace both the front. Since one failed, we're gonna assume the other one's about the same state. These are only like 10, 12 bucks, I think. So we had this real bad shim problem with the Kingpins up front, so we're gonna take it out and look at it. This might be the easiest Kingpin removal ever. He just used this tiny little hammer and came right out.
So it's pressure on it, right? Aiming for that box, right?
It's going for the box, yeah. This is the Kingpin bearing. We can't even get it to turn. Let's see if we can order just a new one, because the Kingpin itself is in very good shape. Hopefully that part number. We'll get us somewhere. We cleaned it in the parts washer and still can't get it to turn. So we're checking the Jake brake adjustment on here. And you gotta make sure that the exhaust valves are closed. These are the ones that have the 92A. So it says 71-92A. It can say A on it, or it can have just 71/92, and there's 2 different feeler gauge settings for them. The one, I think it's 0.064 for the ones that don't have an A. These have an A, so these are 0.059 is the adjustment. So the bridge here, so it's a smooth pull right there. So the Kingpin looks really good. We're just gonna put new shims in and then the new bearings, but we gotta have the new bearing in to know our height, because the old one's worn down a little bit. And then we're gonna re-shim it. But the bushings look good and the Kingpin looks good. We took the coney shocks off here. The red conies are adjustables. They were in the soft position, so we turned them to the stiff position. There's like 3 clicks. Turn it clockwise to go to tight. Now they're much stiffer, and that should improve the ride just here a little bit. I've actually never seen the conies on a Prevost before. We see these a lot on the Wander Lodges, but there is an option on the Prevost where you can add a second shock up front if you want to. All the mounts are here for it. Down there and there. This one has a bushing out like maybe they used to have the doubles on here. But most of them just have the one. But again, we moved it, adjusted it to stiff, and it should ride a little better for them. So there's no wear on the Kingpin itself. The bushings looked good. It's just polished a little bit. There's no scrapes or scores or anything. At glance, the air filter looks pretty clean, but you'll see it's not here. We use a very low air pressure here, where there's no nozzle tip on that, so it's not tearing up the filter at all. But we're just going to blow this dirt out of it here, and then next maintenance round, we can replace it, because they're about $200 a piece.
Definitely has some dirt in it.
We've been getting everything all cleaned up good. So I do have a couple of low profile jacks. That one's holding up the tag, but it's all the way down. It's just mechanical. There's no hydraulic holding it up. And then that one does have some hydraulic lift on it. It's holding up the rear axle, but then the body, the weight of the body is supported by jack stands on both sides. So the body can't come down. The only thing that could come down is the axle itself here could drop down a couple inches. That's all, but we're not going under the axle. Hydraulic jack holding up the front axle, but the body weight is supported on a jack stand on both sides. This jack is just holding the Kingpin because the Kingpin is out right now. It's keeping it on the knuckle. This is the EGT where I broke it off there. There was threads that stuck out. We removed it and we ordered a new one. It had 2 wires there. Got a big block of ice frozen inside of the cap here to our used coolant barrel. So we're going to flush out the rear end housing here. We're going to put 5 gallons of diesel in the rear end and then see what comes out and make sure there's not a bunch of metal in there.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Here it comes.
There's some metal on the drain plug already. You see it?
I do.
Not really much. Have to fill the transmission through the dipstick tube here. And it's way back in there. It's very small and it's a pain to do and it drains really slow. Seven gallons later, Joe's arm is very tired. So far, you haven't spilled a drop.
Not a drop. Don't jinx me.
Okay, we put on some new Gates brake hoses on here and a new regulator valve for the parking brake release that was leaking badly. So parts are coming in the deep freezer. We've already got some of our Bauer bearings and races in here. These are all made in the USA. Wish I could get Bauer to sponsor us. Wouldn't that be awesome? Well, that's where we're at the end of day 3 here. As parts are starting to trickle in, we do have a big snowstorm coming in a couple of days, so that's really going to mess up our parts deliveries, I think, because I think a lot of stuff was supposed to show up on Friday.
up the holler through the trees, and from a mile away you can hear them play as they climb that hill with ease. But at the top of that mountain there's a new life waiting for those who can make the run. If they can make it to the top, Scott will put them in the shop till their new life has begun. Mountain, where the buses come to run.